What's the most effective delivery method? Is it bid build, design build, or is it CMGC, or what many in the building industry call the construction manager at risk? This data is from a 1994 study that was done by Construction Industry Institute and Penn State. It's over 300 projects in the vertical building industry, but you can see from the results of this study that design build fared fairly well, had a lower unit cost, a faster construction speed, and basically compared well with either bid build or construction manager at risk. But we in the transportation area didn't have any studies comparing that till the last 3 years now. Federal Highway launched a study done by the University of Colorado at Boulder, and they looked at bid build versus design build versus CMGC, trying to assess what's more cost effective, what's more efficient. And it was a 2.5-year study looking at almost 300 some projects. And with this study, which still hasn't been published, they will be publishing tech briefs, white papers, and we've had a couple conferences and webinars. But it's an important research study from our perspective and why alternative contracting methods should at least be considered. Here's where the data came from. Looks like we had 2 projects from Tennessee. I don't know which ones those might have been, but we did have a number of states participating in this, and we tried to get a national picture using bid build, CMGC. We had a hard time finding CMGC projects that were completed in the period 2004 through 2015, but we ended up with 34 projects eventually, and similar size projects. That was the important thing from a researcher standpoint, that the projects be similar in size. And here's, you see the types of projects. The bid build projects had some A+B bidding, and the design build projects, the best value had some A+B bidding. 39 of the 108 design build projects were low bid. At that time, Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania were doing low bid design build. But many of the states had already transitioned to best value design build. So on most of the design build projects, probably 2 to 1 were best value design build projects. And here's what the average size of those contracts were. So you can see the mean cost was anywhere from 10 million up to 43 million. But some of the big best value design build projects were as large as $357 million. One interesting thing that this research project did that some others have not done, they looked at a thing called intensity, which is how quickly construction gets underway and how quickly we spend money per day of the contract. Which of these delivery methods do you think would maximize intensity of the contract? How much money is paid out per day of the contract and how quickly it's done? Do you think design build would be the leading candidate for that, or would it be CMGC where all the contractor had input into the constructability? And that was the interesting part of the study, looking at the results. The fastest payout went with design build best value, maybe just because of the nature of the project, the size of the contracts, the incentives that were paid out, but from a mean cost standpoint, the highest or the fastest intensity went to design build best value. And it was quickly followed by CMGC at $41 million as far as the project intensity. So those two we knew they had the ability to deliver quickly, but this data showed that design build best value and CMGC had the ability to deliver statistically faster than bid build and design build low bid. Cost growth. Which intuitively do you think would have the smallest cost growth or the best cost growth? The lowest cost growth? Well, I would hope CMGC would have the lowest cost growth because the CM firm is involved with the design, is picking out all the errors, is able to advise the owner on scheduling, the use of the right materials. So you would hope that that CM firm had the logical input to keep costs low. And that was indeed the case here, where the CMGC cost growth was 0.9, much lower than that of bid build, and even lower than that of design build. So the research is confirming some of the things that we think are intuitive, and then some of the research is not confirming what logic would say. Change orders. Some of these were surprising to me. The lowest delivery method for agency-directed changes was CMGC at 0.7, if I'm reading this right. Yeah, 0.7%. That's not surprising since the CM firm is involved in the design, and the owner should be able to take care of that or acknowledge that and improve the design prior to letting the final plans. But what became somewhat surprising was the lowest plan quantity changes was with design build best value at 0.2%. The highest unforeseen conditions with design bid build, that was not a surprise at 2.4, but the highest plan error rate was with design bid build. Not surprising, but the lowest was with low bid design build. So the study did come up with some contradictions in what we think of delivery methods, but it pauses and makes us question why some of these numbers might be the way they are and the input during the process. So it'll be interesting to do this study again in 10 years from now when we have more projects to analyze. The other big benefit of this study was the lessons learned, and we asked the consultant to come up with white papers on the lessons that they learned in looking at these savings lessons learned, and there were some interesting findings regarding some of these. One thing I've always wondered if owners are using the unsuccessful proposers' ideas after they've paid the stipend for it, and this study confirmed that most owners pay a stipend for the unsuccessful proposers, but are unable to use those ideas in the final proposal for one reason or another. Maybe the successful firm doesn't want to use it, maybe they've already scheduled their work or designed around their ATCs, but for whatever reason, the use of stipends is important, but we're frequently not using those ideas from the unsuccessful proposers. Comments from the A&E guys? No? DBIA is very strong on this issue. You shouldn't be buying ideas from the engineering community and using them elsewhere. They're our ideas. But from our perspective, they're important in making this whole wheel turn and getting competition. So, comments or questions? Yes, sir. The cost growth would be measured, well, the plan error would be in the owner's RFP, the PS&E for bid build or the owner's RFP document. So if there's a change in the RFP, that's what would be measured. After that, it's the design builder's design, and we're not measuring that. But these lesson learned papers have some interesting ideas, and hopefully we'll get those posted on our Federal Highway Research website before the end of the year.